I could answer that in 1A and 1B. 1A
Sure.
is be motivated to know exactly what you're getting into because you are going to be the focus of that entity as you start. So if it's something that you're passionate about, you really care, and you love what you're doing, make sure that you know what you're getting into from that activity.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Christopher Carter. Christopher started his journey in high school, got a business card company started using plastic cards with the high school printers there. And then afterwards went off to Georgia Tech and studied computers, went to work for a SAP company and worked and then worked for the Olympics Committee after then starting a few different companies, having some successes, some failures, and some bankruptcies along the way, and then is now shifted to running a few different companies of his own, as well as doing a few other investments as well. So, with that much as a quick introduction, welcome on the podcast, Christopher.
Hey, thank you very much. And please call me Chris. My friends all do.
All right, we definitely will do. So, well, awesome. Well, I just gave a quick introduction to a bit of a longer journey. So, why don't we rewind and unpack that a bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started to start or doing a business card company while you were in the high school.
Yes, I actually started my first ever business was in high school. I started playing around in one of my business classes in high school with these little plastic business cards. It was the same size as everybody else's business card, but it had a little plastic vellum on it. So I was using the printers in my school, and I would go around and I would fill a fishbowl. Back in the day, we had glass fish bowls, not the plastic ones nowadays. But I would put about 10 business cards in there, and I'd put 3 or 4 of the plastic ones in there. And people would always pull out, 9 out of 10 times, they'd pull out that plastic one. And I'd be like, how did you know that? And I said, it just felt different. Well, would you like to be different and feel different every time? Let me order you or let me make you these plastic business cards. And lo and behold, I had about maybe 15 or 20 different companies that literally took me out my offer up, and I just helped them out with their business cards. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. So you started there and started the business or the card or the business card printing company, and then I believe your journey continue on going off to college. So go ahead with the journey.
Yeah, I so my journey took me to Georgia Tech. Loved being there. I worked my way through school as a technologist. I took a Commodore VIC-20 and an Apple IIe to college. Learned how to code. Learned about business and the technology. Got an internship with Coca-Cola CCE. Used to work in the bowels of the basement of the tower, as we call it. Got my first real job straight out of college with SAP America because I was working on the SAP system for Coca-Cola, and they were transitioning to the new x86. So all these fun computers that we have nowadays is an x86 chip, and the growth from mainframes to something portable. I remember getting my first portable laptop. That was pretty cool. And so I just kept moving forward from there. Started my own company in the 1990s. Yes, kids, there was a 1990s. And, I've had highs where I've done extremely well and sold off the company, and I've done extremely bad and I've had to bankrupt the company. And you just
So
never know
now,
what's going
just
to.
to not or not to gloss over, because that's a good portion of the journey. So you started out with the SAP, and then or how long did you work for there, and what was kind of the next phase after that?
Yeah, I started with them, and then all of a sudden the Olympics came around. ACOG and I went to work for the Atlantic Committee for the Olympic Games, ACOG for a few years, transitioned back into the SAP world, started my own company in 1999 or
And
somewhere right.
what was that? What was that company that started or right at the turn of the century?
Yeah, it was called Hiln, Hiln, or actually that one was CCI. I'm sorry, CCI, which was the first company at the turn of the century, and then moved that. Unfortunately, put that one away, and then started up again, and finally decided I'm going to go work for somebody for a little while, and I ended up doing that. So you've, it really depends on what you're doing. I was working in the education space for SAP for a while, and I there's a good point for anybody that's listening and watching this. If you don't know the ecosystem that you're going into, I thought everything SAP wise, I could bring in the technical, I could bring in the functional, I could help with the training side of it as well. I always used to see a lot of companies needed organizational change management. I don't touch any of that anymore. Refuse to touch it because I just don't know the basics of it. When I was doing it back then, we would get the materials, we'd get the systems, we get now completely different. And it just it was something that I wasn't it wasn't in my knowledge base. So I literally came into it with thinking my technical side, my functional side, and unfortunately it just didn't work the way that I was hoping that it would.
Now you did that, and you mentioned you did a few different businesses over that period of time. Now, was that full-time, gig that you were doing that, or was it kind of alongside of, doing working for, SAP or other businesses in addition to that, or kind of how did you balance? Because it kind of sounds like you had some successes, failures, bankruptcies. So kind of walk us through what was that scope of the business or kind of the focus.
Yeah, those were all full-time endeavors. Back in the day, really didn't have a lot of side hustles or side businesses that we can do now. It was you were focused on something and you were driven to that activity. And so it's kind of like my quote with Rocky back there. I kept falling down, but I'd get back up. I'd have success, and maybe I'd trip up and I'd get back up. So everything had its progression, no matter if it was just a one-off company or if I left the ecosystem and I went to go work for somebody else, it was typically always something that I was doing as a full-time engagement. Now I've got young people that are working with me. Now I've got
So
four
now,
different
before we
companies.
jump to the now, or so that we continue on. So you did that a number of times, kind of had successes and failures. Now fill us in. How did that progress to where you're at today? So in other words, kind of walk us through that evolution of the journey to going from having some failures, some bankruptcies to the starting the current businesses as well as doing some of the investment. Kind of what was that evolution, or how did that take place?
Yeah, the evolution is, things are going to happen. You try to do your best with everything. Unfortunately, with the bankruptcy, the main one, which is the only one, I had put too many eggs in a basket. I literally had 80, it was like 83% of all my revenue in one customer. And as we all, of course, know now, it's never a good thing. That company actually came to us and said, literally 30 days before the end of the year, and said, we are going to be moving all of your contracts overseas. You can either reduce your rate by 65%, or we're going to take it all overseas. And literally, you had 30 days before the end of the year, and it just crushed me. I had a great staff. We had great staff for them. Um, I've heard later on in my career that they really wish that they would have kept our people because there wasn't a transition. They literally lifted us and said, "Get out," and they tried to put it into an offshore India formation, and it was just very difficult, I was told. But that being said, we tried to do what we could. We gave our people 30 days and said, you guys need to find new careers. We don't have this in the pipeline at this moment. You're not going to get, we can't do that. And we lasted a couple more months, and then we made the hard decision that we needed to turn the key on that one and try to take care of it.
So you make that decision and said, okay, you do what you can with, if some things, sometimes things are out of your head, what are out of your hands, whether it's, moving overseas, whether it's making decisions that are impactful to business that are outside of your control. So you do that, you get people that as much of a runway as you can. Now, after kind of going through that, picking up from there, kind of how did you decide what was the next phase, or what was the next focus for you?
Yeah, my next focus was just to provide for my family. So I went to go work for not necessarily a competitor, but for a unicorn that was looking at somebody with some SAP knowledge, some cloud knowledge, and that could integrate with other tool sets. I'm a technologist by trade and by heart. I know things like VMware. I know cloud. I built clouds. So they asked me to come in and basically run sales and marketing for the Americas. So I did that. I came in. I didn't have to touch technology other than having somebody who was with me that could do demos. I could talk from a very high level to C-level executives, all the way down to those individuals who are working on these types of systems. And I would fly around it was all over Brazil and Mexico and Canada and the United States, helping them get started. And then as that progressed, that was doing quite well for that organization. And they were a startup organization. All of a sudden, one day out of the blue, a vice president from SAP came and brought a bottle of scotch to my backyard, and we sat down at my fire pit, and we started talking about the newest, latest, and greatest. And that was 2 years after stepping away from SAP and just kind of decompressing and trying to figure out what my failures were and what my successes were, and should I get back into it. And lo and behold, we by the time we finished that bottle of scotch at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was already on the phone to individuals I knew in Germany. So I made plans. Literally 48 hours later, I was on an airplane to Germany, and I spent a week plus there. Then I came home for a half a day, grabbed new clothes, kissed my wife and baby daughter, and hightailed it over to Palo Alto, California, and sat with them at SAP Labs for another week. And we were very blessed. We became one of the first SAP startup focused program companies. But I still didn't know if I was wanting to. I was a little nervous, a little scared, a little hesitant based upon the failure that I had. Um, and you get that. You know, I was a very successful young entrepreneur. I was doing a lot of things. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I had this failure. But that's again where the Rocky Balboa quote comes in. You know, you're going to fail, and you just got to keep getting up, and you got to move forward. You got to keep taking those punches, and you got to keep going. I said, okay, we're going to do it. I had the full backing and support of my wife, and we went for it. And I was very blessed that SAP gave us that startup focus program. We were the first of 20 organizations that year that got that from Dr. Plotner, who is the founder of SAP. And we just kept moving forward. And so now, fast forward to now, it's 2025. We're still one of the top SAP partner companies for the SMB ecosystem. We still work with organizations and individuals. I still try to reach my hand backwards to bring people forward, and I'm still trying to learn new things every day. Do I have failures? Sure. Do I still fall? Yes. Do I still have activities where I wish I was doing something different, or activities, not in business per se, but in the direction that we're going? I think we're on a steady course.
So now, just rewind just a little bit, or to fill that in. So kind of over what course of time, when did you start the current SAP business that you guys continue to do today?
Yeah, 2011, we were in startup mode, and yeah, we haven't looked back since.
So you take that 2011, so you're coming up 14 years or so. Now walk us through. So is that, you jump back in, maybe a bit hesitant, as you're had maybe some of the previous failures, and kind of you are navigating and getting prepared for that again, and jumping back in, and then having some of those, maybe flashbacks, so to speak. So what was that evolution? You got the business started. Was it this next time around, or was there a rocket ship to the top and you had more success and you know what to do with, and money raining down from the sky? Or was it still some of the ups and downs, or was it an evolution? Or kind of walk us through over that course of that 11 years, how things played out, or sorry, that 14 years, how things played out for you?
Yes, so that's a great question, because not everything is a rocket ship. I came back very hesitant. I didn't hire a lot of people up front. I didn't move fast. We got our partnerships right away, and I started working with partners to be able to do sales and marketing activities on one side and staffing support on the other side. I wasn't going to jump in with both feet right away after what I felt happened last time. I was nervous. I was hesitant. Then all of a sudden, maybe about 4 or 5 years into it, the momentum was going and we were getting into it. I landed in some very nice and secure customers. So we brought in some of people of our own W-2s. We started running our own sales and marketing. We started doing our own technology. We had our own tool that we've built now from scratch, starting in that time that manages, monitors, and does predictive analytics. We were doing AI before AI was even a term, and we started going through that process. But I don't know if it was a personal activity or if it was just subconscious. I started literally doing baby steps. And then I started to do a little bit bigger of steps. And then I started to run. And so now we're at that point where we're doing a very nice fast walk. We're supporting organizations around the globe, but I still have it in the back of my mind. I don't want to fail my staff, don't want to fail my wife and children or myself.
No, that makes perfect sense and sounds like a great evolution now. So that kind of catches things up a bit to where things are at today. Now, if you're kind of, look out, into the next 6 to 12 months as things continue to evolve and continue to move forward, kind of where do you see the next steps headed, or kind of what is the next progression for your business?
Yeah, the progression is to keep moving forward. It's kind of funny. We're in the largest upgrade cycle in the SAP ecosystem, and we've diversified quite a bit. We have applications that we're using to help with organizational change. We have the people inside, both in Brazil and India and UK, Germany, and the United States. So we're continuously diversifying who we are and what we do. COVID was interesting for us. It took us to a place from where we just were centrally located in Wisconsin, and we're only hiring people coming out of Wisconsin to moving us to a global entity. I now have more individuals from a global entity than I do in the United States simply because it's so hard to get the people that we need to be successful. And so I started looking around the globe, and I find great people all the time. So I love that activity. That being said, we're all a remote organization. Outside of the main campus or the main office, which we consolidated down to only 3 offices now. Now we're a global entity with some great minds. I think about Tejas and I think about Gustavo and I think about Sean. They're all outside of the main campus. And it's wonderful because they're just incredible people, great knowledge, great customer service. And I would have never have found those individuals if we didn't have that disease that came up. So it's that was kind of interesting. Put a little kibosh on some of the client growth at that point in time, and we're starting to get that back. But you know what? That's why we got these lead generation platforms, and we've got all these other activities that we've got going on with CRMs and activities. And it's here to help educate those companies to come work with us.
Awesome. Well, sounds like a great journey and a good evolution along the way. So I definitely appreciate the walkthrough and sharing there. So now as we've kind of now caught up to the present day of the journey and even looking a bit to the future of where things are headed, great time to transition to the 2 questions I always like to ask towards the end of the episode. So we're going to jump to those now. So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Worst decision was putting all my eggs in one basket. And what I learned is don't do that. Diversification is key. If you get a customer that takes up more than 20% of your business, you better find another company to go right behind it that takes up 5% or 3% or 7%. Don't hold all those eggs in that one basket.
No, that makes perfect sense. It's sometimes easier said than done. When you have those big clients, it's not always easy to find another one to diversify into. And yet, one is,
Yeah.
it always is, it's always nice when you don't have any client that's so big that you can't fire them. And not in the sense you want to fire all your clients, but in the sense that if, hey, I don't like or enjoy working with them anymore, or it's going in and pushing the business in a different direction, or it's one where they're always a headache, that you can say, hey, they're not so big, or they're not so we're not so tied to them that we can't go other or have other avenues or other or ability to keep and manage the business beyond any one given client. So I think that's definitely, an easy mistake to make, especially as you're getting started, but a great one to learn from.
Yes.
Second question now that I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb you'd recommend?
If I could answer that in 1A and 1B. 1A is be motivated to know exactly what you're getting into, because you are going to be the focus of that entity as you start. So if it's something that you're passionate about, you really care, and you love what you're doing, make sure that you know what you're getting into from that activity. 2, get yourself great legal advice, get yourself a great patent attorney, get yourself a good person that you can bounce ideas off of, because I've got one myself, Paul, and from even getting back into owning the company again and starting up from scratch and then starting multiples, I have conversations with him all the time. No matter if he's in court or if he's doing something, he'll always get back with me and we'll have conversations wrapped around different topics. We're going through some activities with different organizations right now. He's constantly giving me advice, and I listen to his advice. That's another thing. Make sure you listen to the people that you talk to. You may not hire a lawyer to bring into your company, but you're going to hire them as an outside counsel. You may not bring in a chief operating officer or a CFO, but you as that main entity, you can't do legal and finance and HR and sales and marketing. There's too much there. Bring in those quality people to support you, and then you do what you do best and let them do what they do best.
No, that makes perfect sense. Great rule of thumb, and definitely good takeaway. So, well, now as we do wrap up towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Best place is LinkedIn. Tell me that you saw me on the podcast. Reach out to me directly, no matter which one of those phases you're looking at. I'm on Twitter as well. You could go to our corporate page, which is approyo.com, APPROYO.com, and go to any of those and specifically let me know that you saw the podcast, and I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you. I'm always available.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, expand their network, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So,
Great.
With that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share, if you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveunicorn.com, inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey of success. And along that note, if along your journey, you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com. Grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Chris, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you.